I'm gonna I'm gonna record the meeting, so I've got I can come back and look if I've got notes or if I want to double check some comments. So, um, thank you all for being here again, as always. I'm gonna drop today's agenda in the chat. I had an announcement in there, but I don't really want to go into that now. I want to jump into the feedback on the program inventory, but we can talk about anything that's in that agenda announcement section at the January meeting. So I've got some colleagues from Salesforce that are on the call that are just going to be listening. They may pop in and ask questions if one of you offers some feedback or some comments that they'd like more detail about. But I'm going to be taking notes now, and then I will also send you all a survey after the fact, as soon as we're done with this call, where you can provide feedback. And I appreciate y'all's time, and I also recognize that this is the second time we've asked for your feedback on essentially the same sort of system in roughly the same year. So I acknowledge that you all may have some may be tired of offering feedback because you just like something a little bit more stable. So I appreciate that, and I recognize that, and I appreciate you all being willing to offer feedback again. So what I'd like to do is kind of divide this into 4 different sections. So 15 minutes for each one. We have the program inventory in general, we have program modifications, we have NOIs, and we have program proposals. So we don't necessarily need to spend the whole 15 minutes on on each of those if we resolve if we get, if you're finished saying what you need to say, we won't hang around for it. But we'd like to, and the questions will be roughly the same for all 4 areas. So what are your pain points in that particular system in program inventory, program mods, NOIs, program proposals? What is functionality that you have that you want to keep in all 4 of those areas? And what is functionality that you do not have that you wish you had? So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'll just ask for you all to offer comments on the program inventory. What kind of problems are you experiencing in the program inventory currently? And you can use either the current prog mod or the previous platform to, as a point of reference. But if anybody would like to start, go ahead.
Well, I always have a lot of comments. You are probably aware of most of those, but to voice them out loud a little bit, um, I just really like everything to be clear in the system. This was something that, although the old system, KPEDS, was not my favorite, but I liked the simplicity of it. I liked how very much utilitarian it was. I found it a little unclear when looking at the history. Um, how the old entry was to the left, the one on the right was the new or most recent entry. But a lot of times you would go into the current entry and it looked like it was in the middle of being modified, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. And it didn't happen every time. But of course, with ProgMod, I like the ability to edit things like degree designation and degree level. I certainly want to maintain that type of functionality, but yeah, one of the main things for me is just simplicity and clarity in what the current status of a program is, clarity in what the history of a program is, and any modifications that have been done in the past, as well as what clarity on what has been approved and what's pending. So those are my initial comments. I have more thoughts than that, but I will hold off.
Anyone else?
I agree with everything Anthony said, and I think one issue that I would like to see is that if there is information, for the most part, I would like to be able to extract the information that is in the inventory in a usable report. And it doesn't have to be a fancy report. It's gonna be a CSV. I'd love it to be a CSV file, just anything. But that doesn't have to include the lengthy text cells if there's a comment cell or something. But if there is, information about the program and the status and the approval status and maybe when it was approved, any of those kind of data points that you can see in the interface, it would be really helpful to be able to then also extract a report so that we can see all of our programs together, both inactive and active, and with that indicated, so we can, I don't need the report to be pretty. I can just dump it all out and, make it pretty and outside of the system.
Okay. Are there any features that you don't have now? I understand that the reporting is a big thing. So, but I've noted that. Are there any other features that you wish you had, but you don't? Or things that you would like to do, or things you would like to see, or you wish it was arranged this way instead of that way?
This is Sydney. I'm sorry, my camera is not working. And forgive me if this is something Anthony's already mentioned, but because we're dealing with 16 colleges inventories, we would like the ability to do prog mods for all of the schools at the same time, if that's a possibility. We're constantly changing credit hours, titles. It would be so much simpler if we could make one edit that would update all 16 inventories where that particular credential was offered.
Yeah, and I know that's a little bit of an ask just because the different situations that we enter in KPEDS and the different types of credentials, it can kind of muddy that a little bit. But to just exemplify a little bit, so when we have one program or one credential that's offered at all of our colleges, I have two places I need to update that, both in CPE system and also a table we have internally that links a CPE ID to our internal academic plans. So if we just have one credential that hasn't updated all colleges, that's 32 modifications I have to do just for one credential. So if there is any possibility at all to simplify that process across multiple colleges, again, I know it gets muddy depending on type of credential, especially and credit hours, credit hours depending on what tracks are offered at certain colleges. But things like certificates, especially where it's pretty much uniform across the board, if our board approves modifications to change the credit hour range of a certificate, for example, it would be handy to just be able to somehow indicate or select all the colleges that offer that credential and need it changed instead of doing individual modifications. If that's even some kind of a possibility to explore, that would be a plus.
And if we're
yes, go ahead.
could I also just say that having to try to track the CPE ID number in association with our program plan numbers is a nightmare. That's why we've created this dual system. So if the system you're building had a place for an institutional ID number, you all wouldn't have to do anything with that data, but we could use it. And that would create a crosswalk for us that would be very helpful.
Okay. What else? What else do you wish you had in the program inventory that you don't currently have now?
Another comment, if we are talking about ProgMod, I find it strange that in ProgMod, looking at the inventory is secondary. So with KPEDS, with the old system, it seemed, or the way I kind of viewed it, was an inventory first and a modification submission area second. And I say that because I would say at least as often, I was just going into KPEDS to look at the inventories. And I liked the fact that on the opening screen, when you first go into it, you have the search functions at the top, but the inventory was directly below that. And now to look at the inventory, you have to log in and then you have to select add new modification and then try to find it that way, which is just counterintuitive to me. So I like the idea of the inventory being front and center along with the ability to put in a modification so that you could do either easily and clearly.
Okay. What else about program modifications or the program inventory itself? Are there any other comments about functionality that you'd like to retain in program modifications or the program inventory, or features that you wish you had that you don't have, or things that are troublesome that haven't been mentioned already?
A date a date ranged report of changes made would be very helpful, where we could pull information out of the system.
I don't really have a comment about, and this is maybe more similar again to what Anthony was talking about, but I don't have like a specific feature in mind, but just to reiterate, like often when I go in and make updates in the program inventory, for first what I need to see is what's there. Sometimes when sometimes I go into the inventory and I'm making specific changes, like, oh, we are changing the name of this, or we are, making a specific change and it's very directed at a single program. Sometimes I'm trying to see, like, are all of our certificates, like I know Sheila helped me in the old system where, are all of our certificates actually, do they all have the correct degree designation? And so that kind of thing, like that interface where you're able to just either do an export or within the system filter somehow to pull all the records that meet these requirements or something.
But see,
something
you're
like
in,
that.
We heard you, Bob.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think I was being heard. I'm sorry, because my Teams has been off all day. It's been working and not working. So Lori, are you interested in like a QC function, like just checking like over time, that everything is named properly, the credit hours are correct, and things of that nature? Because I would
Yes,
like that. Well,
and really, it's fine with me if that functionality is not in the system, but it's something that I could easily export.
right. That's yeah.
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 So, and that's how I've tended to do things in the past. And to be perfectly honest, have not used Progmod that much. So I've only made very directed changes, like we need to make this specific change, and because it isn't very, the way it's designed is not, it is more like you go in and you find, I want to make this specific change, as opposed to kind of looking at the inventory.
Are there any other comments about the program inventory itself or program modifications? I mean, you can raise them again, and like I said, I'll send out a survey link for you all to fill out if you choose to. You don't need to do it again, but you're welcome to provide more input that way. Then let's go ahead and start at the NOI stage. So if we think about NOIs, what are the pain points for you in terms of the NOI submission process? Are there things that are clunky? Is there information you wish you had ahead of time? One of the things that I've asked the Salesforce folks to do is automatic notifications for things that are submitted. So I'm envisioning that when Lori, you're in my upper left-hand corner, so I'll just pick you. So if Lori submits an NOI, then once CPE staff approve it, then all the institutions will get a notification that the NOI was approved. And then all the institutions will get a notification when the 2-month development period starts. And then when the 2-month program development period ends. And then a notification when the program proposal is submitted. And then a notification when the program proposal is approved. So what is that too much? Is that too many notifications for you all? Would you like to opt in or opt out to certain notifications? So what do you want to know from other institutions? Because I feel if we want to encourage institutions to work together, at a minimum, we need to make sure all of you see what the rest of you are doing. So, what do you want to know about in terms of alerts for NOIs and program proposals?
All of those notifications are fine with me. The one pain point that I have is when I do get a notification, I click on the link, it takes me to log in. I log in and then I'm like, where is this thing? So I click the link again, then it asks me to log in again. So the link doesn't take me to the proposal itself. So to make sure whatever the notification system is, that if there's a link to go and find it, it goes to that thing rather than having to search for it.
Not just the site. Okay. Anything else?
So Sheila, I think in terms of the notifications, I think that those notifications need to include the instructions for what you are to do once you receive the notification. We, on this call, probably know, okay, there's a new NOI, we might reach out. But over time, those repetitive notifications can lead to some desensitized reactions, right? And there are going to be new people in our roles. So I think whenever we insert notifications, it's important to be specific about what it is the notification is requesting the receiver to do or to participate in.
One thing that I've talked about with our Salesforce folks is to have terminology is not quite right, but two different categories of folks. So I would think that CAOs would want some of this information, but they may not care when the program development period begins or ends. So we would have two different groups for notification purposes. One, I would assume, would be the program contacts that get all of the notifications, and then maybe the CAOs would get fewer notifications. I've also asked that the CAOs have access to something that's very simple so that when they receive a link, they don't have to go to the system and try to remember their login. I'm not sure if that's going to be manageable or not, but one thing we're looking at is how to make it easy for folks to look at what we're sending them if what we just want them to do is to be able to see it. So I appreciate that suggestion. We'll make sure that those emails include whether they need to do anything or just as an FYI. When we move these things into the NOI as well as the program proposals, there will be logic embedded in Salesforce. So when an institution if it's Abdu logs in, it will know where his institution is. Then he will pick what degree level that he's proposing a new an NOI for, and then that will give him just the questions that are associated with that level of degree. So we won't have. We've got one NOI, I think 5 program proposal forms. So when you go into Salesforce in the future, it will just be showing the form will be contingent upon the what you select in a couple of initial drop downs. I'm remiss, I should have said this earlier on. Our plan is to have this up and running by March 2026. So it'll be pretty quick. But I have faith in my colleagues at Salesforce that they can do that. So is there functionality at the NOI stage that you wish you could have? You'll enter text into a field, obviously. Is there something that you want to do with that text? Do you want, it seems like you're just going to enter the text into the field and that's just a data entry issue, but is there anything about that that's challenging or cumbersome?
Yeah, Sheila, I want to go back to this, and I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record on the entry of the NOI, but maybe Salesforce could present us with some solutions to a problem I know that we have when we're trying to enter information. So because this system, the CPE system, doesn't speak to my curriculum system, right, at EKU, we are basically having to rewrite and transpose the same information between all of the different systems. And anything with a fillable field for an NOI, for example, that is not portable and can be brought into my system, I'm going to have to retype into the CPE system, right? And I fear that introduces errors and is just a lot of copying and pasting. So if there are ways to alleviate some of that, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Now, are you thinking okay, so essentially what you're wanting to avoid is doing the copy and pasting between your institutional paperwork and then the CPE paperwork. Is that correct?
Yes. And so just for reference, what we do now is we take the CPE forms and we have a Word document that the faculty fill out that accompanies the proposal in our system, right? So I've actually asked our own curriculum system to not allow forms, and they're just attaching a Word document that is what the CPE form requires, and then what the SAC-COC form requires if it's a new program that needs approval, right? And those two documents are attached to our systems. So our kind of virtual workflow. Then when we get to the CPE stage, I'm taking all of that and then copying and pasting it into the CPE form.
All right, I will find out from the folks what type of functionality they have that might be able to alleviate that. But if it's, I don't think it'll be within scope to have a kind of a connector or an API built in. So that might be something that we would have to look at something in the future. But I'll take this back because I'll take it back and we'll see what kind of solutions we might be able to come up with.
Yeah, Sheila, if you want, I agree with what you said. This is Miriam from Salesforce. That it's not within scope to do like a direct integration between whatever system was mentioned and the CPE platform. That being said, if there are particular fields on that Word document that need to be in a certain type in order to be, able to be exported into, and then uploaded into your system or copied and pasted, in an easier way. That's something, Sheila, as you're documenting things for what fields we're pulling, as we're pulling fields from the forms into the platform, the what type of fields those are, you can standardize that so that it's easier to pull over into another system.
Anything else about, I guess NOIs and program proposals has to do with the data that gets put in there. Are there any other pain points that you all experience in the NOI stage in terms of the forms and the submissions? Is there functionality that you wish you had in the NOI stage that you wish you have that we don't have?
I think
Anything
that
else?
most of the pain points I'm having with the current forms will just be alleviated by the fact that they're not Word documents that are locked down so that we are not allowed to edit them. But I don't understand why they're locked down, because we're going to submit them and they're going to be right, or they're not going to have the information. So it would be helpful to be able to edit the tables to add cells if we need to, or to copy and paste things into a table as opposed to having to copy and paste individual cells. So that's my little gripe about the current Word documents. But I think that will be alleviated by just having it in a different system. To that point, though, I think that the new system just needs to be built so that if there's a possibility that we will have to be adding things, particularly like say in the table where we put these are the types of jobs you can get, just to have that the flexibility to say, okay, we want to add another job, and so it will add another row to the table. Or that kind of thing. So we're thinking, and I can't think about all the specifics. I'll go look at the forms, but just where there is a situation where you might have to expand on something, or maybe change the response field a little, just to have that flexibility built in. The main thing I can think of is, I think on the anything that has to do with curriculum, where we're listing that, just to make sure that we're able to add or delete kind of parts of the table so that we can show the curriculum, the full curriculum.
Are you referring to the semester by semester program guide?
Yeah, that part. So just things like that. And I think so wherever you have tables, or so it's whether for curriculum or for job details, career details, just to make sure that we have that flexibility where we can add to it if we have more than the pre-designed number of rows.
Okay.
Or
I'll tell you, the reason they're locked down is, in my experience, half of the people will work just fine with a form that's locked down, and the other half will end up deleting questions by mistake in terms of some global activities. If you want a form to use internally, once we get into Salesforce, well, two things. If you need a change to a form, feel free to send me an email and say, hey, I need 3 rows added to this. It's a little clunky, but you're welcome to ask. But also when we move into Salesforce, I'll be happy to provide you all with unlocked forms if you want to use those as the basis for creating some sort of internal guide for the folks that are filling out those forms. I don't mind sharing those with you at all. That's not a problem. I just wanted to, given the fact that everything was so new, honestly, some of these things are new to me too. And if somebody deleted a question off a form by mistake, I might not be able to catch it till I get more familiar with the item. So
yeah.
that's part of the reason that's there. But
And I'll
that's
be
a good
honest, I mean,
point.
I just converted all the Word documents to PDFs and then converted them back to Word, and so now I have editable PDFs, but I mean editable Word documents. For me, it was mostly a matter of like where I had to copy and paste a table, and I
Okay.
didn't want to copy and paste each cell, or there weren't enough cells to copy things into. So, but I think that's probably a non-issue for like an online
Okay.
system.
And so it sounds like also that you would, and I don't know what's feasible, so we'll ask for the moon. But it sounds like it would be, I mean, Jennifer would like ways to avoid the copying and pasting, but it also sounds like you would like the functionality to be able to copy and paste a table in, or if there's a table already there, to add rows as needed. Is that correct?
I'll comment on that one because I know sometimes the faculty will give me the comparison chart in a table and I wasn't able to copy and paste it into the previous one, but I haven't worked with the new forms, but it seems like the quickest way to get the most information in the least amount of space. So we could copy and paste the whole table in, that would be cool.
And I assume many of these comments pertain to the program proposal as well as the NOI. Is there functionality that you would like? I know for in the prior system, the policy was different, of course, but in the prior system, an institution could enter in a SIP code and then it would automatically spit information out about which programs were at other institutions. We don't have the mandatory collaborative discussion or the feedback, even though we would expect that institutions will still want to provide feedback on their own time. But would it be useful for you all to, when you're starting an NOI, to know how many programs are in the same SIP? Is that sort of thing, would that be useful to continue getting?
Yes, I think it is.
Okay.
I think it's always helpful to know what's out there, especially by the zip code. Yeah.
Do you want to know about programs in the same SIP at the same degree level, or programs in the same SIP at other degree levels? Would different degree levels be of any use to you? Or just the particular degree level you're proposing?
I think for collaboration, different degree levels would be
Yeah, I agree with
useful,
that as well.
particularly if you're looking at like pipelines. So.
All right. If you can think a little bit more about what we wish the system has and what data it pulls in, if the system's going to be connected to the whole program inventory, would it be useful? I'm just trying to think of things that we don't have that you all might need, but it's a little difficult for me because I haven't sat in your shoes exactly. So I'm just thinking about things that you might want the system to tell you when you're creating an NOI. So programs in the same SIP at other institutions at the same or different degree levels. Is there anything else that you would want the system to tell you when you submit an NOI or a program proposal? All right. Um, let's see. So we've kind of run through these just because a lot of the functionality is the same in different parts. Is there anything else that you all want to offer or to make comments on about the program inventory, NOIs, program proposals and program modifications? Maybe let's talk a little bit about what you would see in a dashboard. So Anthony already mentioned that he'd like to go in, when he goes into the program inventory, he does it for two reasons. One, to make a modification, or most likely just to look and see what programs are there. So, I just lost my train of thought. So, okay, so when you log into the system, my understanding is you'll be presented with essentially a page and you have the ability to describe what it is that you want to do, and then that will take you to the next state of functionality. So it sounds like you would like to have the program inventory available to you as soon as you log in. You don't want to have to make a separate click to get to the program inventory. It just needs to, once you log in, there's a program inventory. What else would you like to know? Would you like to have a dashboard that indicates what mods are pending or which ones are approved, which ones are, well, that's pretty much most of them. Would anything like that be useful?
I think having the ability to look at any of that stuff would be useful. Something I will say about the inventory or the dashboard that you first see when you log in, it would be helpful to have all of the most relevant data elements available at a glance. In KPEDS or in ProgMod, not all of them are there. So for example, if I'm wanting to do a glance at my program inventory, the main things I want to know are what college it's with, what the program name is, what the status is, whether it's active or inactive, suspended, the degree level and designation, the credit hours, the min and maximum credit hours, and probably the implementation or the effective date. Those things, having them all at a glance would be really helpful. The min and max credit hours have always, to my knowledge, have always been missing from that view. So anytime I want to check those, I have to go into each individual entry. If I'm trying to do any kind of corrections, or if I'm looking to make sure, for example, if a program changed its credit hours and I need to look at it over multiple colleges, it would be nice to be able to, let's say, sort alphabetically or something like that by program title and see the list of colleges and to see the credit hours. So I could just at a glance see which ones are wrong. And so I know immediately which ones I need to go in and look at. So really just having kind of those most important data elements available right there on the dashboard.
So if we're talking about, so Anthony mentioned these different fields. College or institution name, program name, status, degree level and designation, min-max credit hours, yes, Bob, I'll have to send that to you. Min-max credit hours and implementation or effective date. And there's the first degree reporting year, implementation date. I think the system uses implementation date, right? So
now it uses all three. It uses first degree reporting year, implementation date, and effective date, but it didn't used to have implementation date.
Okay.
It would just have effective date of whatever the most recent modification was, I guess. But actually, in KPEDS at least, whenever you looked at records, even if it was something that had been modified or regardless of what the record was, at least for us, you could never see the effective date. The effective date field was always blank.
So we actually talked about dashboard information some point in the last 3 days. So and part of it was, what do users want to see when you log in? So are there, Anthony articulated them quite nicely. Are there other fields that you all would want to see in the dashboard when you come in? Now the report ideally will be whatever you export will provide more detail than what's in the dashboard. For example, you'll be able to export information about tracks, but we're not going to put track information in that the dashboard that you see when you first come in. So are there other fields that you wish would be available on a dashboard, or has what Anthony described more or less cover it?
I forgot to mention zip code.
Oh. Okay.
I think, so I have a question, and I think so right now we can go to, there's a public facing inventory that we can look at to see what other schools have. And we've used that, to prevent duplication. But also, if we are going to move forward with the plan to justify CIP code changes, partially by comparing to other programs, especially in the state, I just want to make sure that we still are going to have access, whatever the new system is, to be able to see the inventories of other schools, the active inventories, not like the pending changes or that level of thing, but just like this is the current inventory of WKU. So I could see that with the CIP codes and the programs.
Yeah, I think previously you all only have access to your own programs unless you go to that public facing inventory. And I think probably the default for you when you log in will be your institution's inventory. But my plan is for you all to have access to other institutions' program inventory. You'll have write access to your own, but you'll have read access to other folks. And so one of the ways in which Salesforce works is it'll capture all of the communications about a particular program in what's called a case. So ultimately, at some point, you'll be able to go into Salesforce and look and see when it was proposed. You'll see the program, you'll see the NOI, the program proposal, you'll see the gray scorecards, you'll see the 3 dates on which it was changed. You'll know what changed in March 2022 and September 2025. So you should be able to get all that kind of information when you go into the system. And you'll definitely be able to see what other institutions have access to, or what other institutions have.
And then I think, and this is not dashboard so much, but with which is the inventory, again, the CIP code. And I think that having the CPE approval date would be helpful. I've, in the past, not recently, but I know multiple times I've had people who were maybe doing program accreditations or something, but where people needed information about, or they needed documentation that their program had been approved by the state level agency. And so just being able to pull that or do a snapshot of the program page in the inventory with the approval date would be or just, the approval date's also, I mean, the implementation date is more important for me on a regular basis, but I know there have been a couple of situations where that approval date would have been nice to have in the inventory, but it's not in my A list of really important stuff.
Okay. For what it's worth, if you need a letter documenting, see, I feel like I half understand what half of you all are doing, and I really understand what 1/4 of you are doing, but I'm at a bit of a loss as to some of those gaps. So some institutions will send me a request and say, hey, can you send me a form letter that says that we have the authority to offer this program and that it's active in the state's inventory. So I'm more than happy to provide that to you, but I'll make a note of this because it might be easy for you. It may be easy through Salesforce for you to just go in and bam, it's approved, and there's like a little report that comes out. We've got about 15 minutes left, and I think we've gone through quite a bit of this. Is there anything else that you all want to discuss about the move into Salesforce? We'll have some opportunities for trainings, and we'll have one more round for feedback, I think, to give you all a chance to look at what's been done and then to provide some feedback in terms of a mock-up. Bye, Lori. Thank you.
I do have
Yeah.
I do have 3 last comments about
Yeah.
both the inventory and the proposal system, if I can make those.
Yeah.
So for the inventory, you know, in the proposal system, I can go in and I can add new certificates and diplomas, right? Something I've always found a little strange is you don't have the ability to add any of the track information into that. So, for example, diplomas that I go in and enter, a lot of those have tracks in them. But if I'm putting the diploma information in there, I don't have a way to indicate that. So when that record goes into the inventory, it's not going to have any of the track information available. The only way I would have that available is if I then went into the modification system and submitted that as a modification. So it just seems a little strange. It would be nice to have some kind of a way, maybe even if it's a checkbox that says, does this credential have tracks? And if you select yes, then have the ability to add the track information.
Okay.
That would help to account for whatever credential type it was. So the vast majority of our certificates don't have tracks, but we have one or two that do, for example. So other comment about the inventory was the ability to backdate modifications. I know we now have that in ProgMod, I believe, but it wasn't available in KPEDS. And we often need this for any type of corrections we need to do. So especially the ability to go back at least the past year, but just having the ability to put in any time would be helpful.
Actually, we had a call with Salesforce this morning, and I've sent them a list of the fields in the program inventory and the date fields. I've said needs to select current, past, and future so that you've got some flexibility in there to make corrections.
Perfect. That would be helpful. And then the last thing is in the proposal system. When putting in a new degree proposal, the only thing is the current system tends to time you out a lot and or have errors that just pop up. And when those happen, it's unclear whether it saved what you just put in or not. And you won't find out the answer to that until you log back in. And half the time it saved it and half the time it didn't. So if it's going to have a timeout function, I would at the very least like a little warning, a little alert saying the system's going to time you out in 5 minutes, something like that, and just say, okay, or are you still working? Yes, no, something like that. I think that would be great to just know it's going to happen at the very least.
Okay.
I agree with that completely because I had that problem today and then I can't seem to go in and correct what I messed up. It's not letting me, but I will contact y'all on the backside on how to fix what I messed up.
Thank you. Sorry. System probably wasn't you, probably was the system. What else? I don't want to keep you all here unnecessarily, but if you've got any more comments, I'd be happy to hear them. All right. Well, then what I'll do is I will send an email to the whole group here shortly so that everyone has access to that survey. And actually what I'm going to do is I'll send the survey out now, and then I'll also ask for the recording. So if somebody wants the recording, they can get that after the fact, but we won't wait on those surveys. If you could send me or complete the survey by Friday, that would be helpful. Salesforce sprints a lot, so we'll want this information sooner rather than later. They'll be acting on it as soon as they receive it. So last chance for a public comment. All right, well then I'll send you all the survey and you can fill that out and I'll get your comments there. You're not obligated to fill out the survey. If you've said your piece and it's been captured, that's just fine. But if you think of something later, you're more than welcome to do that. None of the fields are required, so you can skip around. And the survey is organized the same way, more or less this conversation was 4 different areas. What's the pain point? What do you wish you had? And what do you have and you want to keep? So I'll send that out here shortly. All right, thanks everybody. I will see you in January. We're going to have a discussion on credit for prior learning. EKU's Cassie Bradley, I think, is going to be doing a CPL presentation for us. So if you've got somebody on your campus that would like to participate in that, feel free to forward them the invitation or let me know and I'll be happy to add them. All right, thanks everybody. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Sheila.
Bye-bye.